Welcome to the Stillhouse Reflections, a quiet space to step outside the noise and consider what's real, what's yours, and what freedom can mean in everyday life. Hey folks, it's Della. Welcome to the Stillhouse Reflections. I hope you're doing well. So today I want to talk about identity, but I want to talk about identity as something that doesn't need to be defended. So right now in the world, identity has become political. Identity has become something that needs to be defended. Identity has become moral, religious. Identity has taken on some things that have made it painful. Identity is no longer just sort of who we are in our physical forms, not just sort of the physical form, the identity as the physical form, but the identity now includes all of these external beliefs, ideas, and perspectives. All of this extra stuff that really isn't about the human being. It's not about the human being. Your political beliefs, whether you're left, right, in the middle, or off the spectrum entirely, have nothing to do with your identity. They are opinions about how you think the world should look, about policy you think should be in place. Your moral or religious beliefs help guide you. They probably help shape your opinions, but they are not meant to be projected onto other people. They are not meant to be built around as some sort of societal guidepost. They aren't meant to do that. That is not why they are there. That is not what they are for. It is actually part of the reason why those things have become a problem, why religion and morality have become a problem in society right now. And it is because we are trying to use them in ways they are not meant to be used. We are trying to get agreement around things that we are not meant to get agreement around. We are never going to get agreement around them. You will never get agreement. And let's understand that morality, and even religion to some degree, but mostly morality, is changeable. Given the right circumstances, your morals will change. If you're hungry enough, you will steal. If somebody tries to hurt you enough, you will kill them. Your morality will change if the circumstance offers you a reason to change it. They are not hard and fast rules. Religion doesn't have hard and fast rules either. And it can't enforce the rules that it tries to have. But the system wants us to have an identity to defend because it gives us something to fight about. It's actually a good distraction, and it's a means of control in that respect. That's its way of controlling the system. If the system has you fighting over how it should be, if the system has you arguing about it, then you're not really paying attention to what's going on, and that's a form of control. It keeps you stuck in the fight. I've said in the past that we need to drop the fight and go home. We need to stop. It needs to end. And that's true. But the idea of that makes people upset. It upsets everybody. Because we're still stuck in the idea that we need to fight. So then we go to, you start fighting. You think, if we don't fight, somebody's going to roll over and something bad's going to happen. That's the story of self-defense. That's the story of self-defense. And the story of self-defense is not true. It was never true. You can say, if I don't defend myself, bad things are going to happen, but here's the reality. Bad things happen anyway. It doesn't matter whether you defend yourself or not. You think you're preventing something because that's the story you've been told. But you've never actually questioned whether it changed the outcome or not. You assume it does, but you've never actually proven that to be true. Because you can't. There's no way for you to repeat exactly the same experience to sort of split test it and have A and B. If I don't do something, what happens? And then if I do something, what happens? You can't split test it. So there's no actual way to know whether what you're doing is changing anything or not. You assume that it's making a difference. But you don't have any actual proof. And I know where we go back to. We go back to Nazi Germany, right? That's where we go back to. And we say, those people rolled over and look what happened to them. That's the argument. So you think fighting wouldn't have gotten them killed? You think war doesn't kill people? If they had gotten up in arms in war, you don't think they would have died? Because that was the alternative. If they were to defend themselves, the alternative was war. And war would have resulted in death. What was the outcome anyway? Death. So what's the difference? The story of self-defense makes you believe that war is better. That war had to have been better than what they did or didn't do. War had to have been better than the concentration camps. The story of self-defense makes you believe that. But the reality is it doesn't change the outcome. When you have an experience in your own life, and somebody does something you don't like, and you think they did it to you, so you tell that story, so it's self-defense. The story of self-defense doesn't help you. Once the experience is over, regardless of whether or not you tell the story of self-defense, the outcome remains the same because you can't actually go back and redo the experience. So telling the story of self-defense just keeps you stuck in the pain longer. It just gives you more pain. It creates pain. You self-create pain that way. And if you go back to the person that created the experience and you defend yourself to them, you just create a new experience that causes pain. The story of self-defense makes more of a problem than the experience itself actually ever was. And it causes you more pain than the experience ever could. Because you're telling a story that's making you act or react in a way that is unhelpful and causes pain. So, to find the truth in those experiences, you have to get out of the stories of self-defense. You have to stop telling them. And then you have to question why you feel the way you feel. You have to question why you're telling the story you're telling. Why do you believe that to be true? And what does it change? What does it actually change? And the truth is, it probably doesn't change anything. Because from where we are now, the outcome is exactly the same. Because you'll never be able to split test the experience. So we can't go back to Nazi Germany and figure out whether fighting back would have changed anything. We can make the assumption that war is going to kill people. And you can't make the assumption that they would win. So the result would have been death. So it doesn't change. So what's the truth in the experience? There was pain in the experience. There was going to be there anyway. Self-defense then self-creates additional pain. Makes it worse. There's a reason why you get told to play dead with a bear. Is because if you try to defend yourself against the bear, you're probably going to lose. It's that. When you don't defend yourself, you probably save yourself a lot of pain. But because we can't split test the experiences, we always assume that defending ourselves ends up at the better outcome. But that's not true. It's a story. And we hinge those things on our identity. They become a story of identity. Who I am is the pain I've experienced. Also not true. You are not the pain you've experienced. I am not the pain I've experienced. You're not the pain. So your identity is not hinged on the experiences that you've had or the pain that you've felt. And those things don't need to be defended. Your authentic self doesn't require defense. It simply knows who it is, and it's fine with that. And it doesn't need to prove it to anybody else. It doesn't need to prove it or defend it to anybody for any reason. There's no reason to do anything about it. It's just there. When your identity and your belief in self is strong enough and confident enough and stable enough, then you're not looking for anything outside of you, and you have no need to defend who you are to anybody else for any reason. None. You do not need to defend yourself. You can let people have their thoughts and opinions. You can let people have their ideas. You can let people even have their expectations. You have no need to meet those. You can let people have their perceptions. You have no need to change it. You can just let people be as they are. You leave them alone and you simply live in your authentic truth because that's who you are. And you have no reason to fix anything around you. And that's a really, really, really hard place to be. Because you think, if I don't do something, all of these things are going to happen. You think you're the guard preventing the chaos. You think you're the thing holding the door closed so the water doesn't get in the flood. You think you're the thing standing between you and the chaos. You're it, right? But you're not. That's a story you tell because it allows you to stay stuck in the problem you've created. It allows you to believe you need to keep holding the door closed. It's not a true story. The best thing you will ever do for yourself is stop trying to hold the door closed. Put down the armor and walk away. It is the most freeing thing you will ever do for yourself. It is also the most scary thing you will ever do for yourself. It is terrifying because you think the world's going to end. And when it simply doesn't, and when you look around honestly and you see that literally nothing happened and you are absolutely fine, it breaks your story in half. It destroys, it obliterates that story. It is not true. Who you are is not about what you stand for or believe in. It has nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. That's a human thing. And it's nonsense. Who you are is totally about how you feel within yourself. And what you think and feel within yourself. Not in response to the outside world. Not in response to the stories the outside world tells you. Not in response to the pain that you experience in your life. Not in response to the issues you see and the problems you see around you. But who you are as a separate identity from all of that. A separate individual being. A unique individual being. Sometimes there's a saying in spirituality that we get, you're in the world and not of it. What does that really mean? If you're in the world and not of it, that means that everything that you see around you is not yours. The problems, the politics, the wars, the lack, the stories, even the relationships that you have with other people, they aren't really yours. Your kids aren't your own. They're their own spirits on their own journeys. The animals you own, the dogs and cats and fish and gerbils and hamsters, they aren't yours either. They are animal spirits on their own journeys. The only thing that is yours is the spirit inside of you. Because even your body is temporary, so it's not even really yours. It's a temporary thing. The house you live in isn't really yours, even if you bought it. The furniture you see every day behind you and around you isn't really yours. None of it really belongs to you. Why not? Because you don't take it with you when you die. When your human form dies, you take none of it with you. So who you are is not subject to any of the things around you. It is a complete, unique identity as a spirit. And that spirit doesn't have any of the human identity, any of the things that humans take on. You don't have to play in the human experience. And you don't have to go live in a cave to pull out of the human experience that way either. You don't have to isolate yourself to say, I'm not going to play by human rules any further. You can stay in the life you have and not play by the human rules. You can stay in the life you have and have a completely unique individual identity that you have no need of defending. When you live as truth, your identity becomes authentic. And to be authentic, it can't be based on human ideas of what it means to be human. But by those, I mean things like politics and morality and religion and all of the stories that we tell about experience and self-defense. Because none of that is true. When you find an authentic self, you no longer need to defend yourself, and you no longer need to carry the armor, and you no longer need to worry about it. You simply let people be as they are. And you don't try to change it, and you don't try to defend yourself from it. It simply exists. Experience is a neutral thing. It just is. And authentic truth and identity allow you to live that cleanly, without the baggage, without collecting more baggage, without adding more stuff. Being truly authentic allows you to leave experience alone and not need to change other people and not need to convince anybody of who you are, or right or wrong, or any of that stuff. You don't need to do any of that. You get to live completely free of all of those things. You don't have to participate. Now, can you choose to participate? Sure, yes. You could choose to participate in any parts of those experiences that you want to participate in. If you want to participate in politics, by all means, go ahead and participate in politics. If you want to participate in activism, go ahead and participate in activism. If that's your thing, if that's your calling, that's your life purpose and goal, then go for it. Who am I to stop you? But for the vast majority of people watching this, for the vast majority of people that will hear this, that is not their calling, that is not their purpose, that is not their identity, that is not the reason why they are here. It is something external to them that is happening around them. It is not who they are. And they do not have to defend their identity because of it. And I want to offer you this. Not doing anything about a problem that you see in the world does not make you part of the problem. That's a human story. It's not true. In philosophy, we have this idea of, if there are two sets of tracks, there's a track and it splits off, right? At the end of one track, there's one person standing there stuck. At the end of the other track, there's 5 people standing there stuck. And there's a lever there and you can pull it. And this train's coming and it's out of control and it's going to hit. It's either going to hit one person or it's going to hit 5 people. And it's your choice which way that train goes. What do you do? It's called the trolley problem. What do you do? And does it matter? Is it your problem to fix? And are you part of the problem if you don't do anything? Human rules are the only thing that makes that a problem. Human rules makes that a problem because it makes you make an impossible choice. If you're making choices based purely on numbers, then you kill 1 to save 5. But are you wrong? Is it a problem if you let that train hit the 5? Did you do something wrong by not saving them? By sacrificing them to save the 1? When you apply human rules, it creates a lot of additional pain that doesn't have to be there. Because when you apply human rules, the argument can be made in both directions. When you apply human rules, not saving people makes you a problem. But there is no universal truth that says that you are required to intervene. That is a human idea. You are not required to intervene. You are not required to solve the problem. You are not required to save anybody. You are not required to fix anything. You are not required to do anything. And that's a very, very difficult thing for people to hear. Because right now, society, the system and the way it's set up, wants you to take on an identity, pick a side, and then defend that. Because that keeps the war going. That keeps the fight happening. It keeps you occupied and busy. And none of it is true. You are free to walk away from that fight and you do not have to save anybody. It doesn't mean you can't if you choose to do so. But there is no sense of obligation there. It is actually just a choice. Like, do I want ice cream right now? It's just a choice. There is no obligation at all for you to do anything about anything, ever. And anything that tells you that there is obligation is a human rule. It is not true. You are not defined by your choice to do or not do any one of those things. You are not defined by anything other than how you choose to feel and think in that moment. Because that's the true only limiting factor that you have, is your own thoughts and feelings. There is nothing outside of you limiting or preventing anything except your own thoughts and feelings. The only limitation you have is yourself. And when you fully understand that, you can free yourself from the human rules, and then you no longer have to worry about making ridiculous choices and feeling obligated to do things that you have no interest to do. You do not need to create an identity that needs to be defended, because there is nothing to defend. When you are your authentic self, The truth does not need to be defended. The pain does not need to be defended either. The truth is, nothing needs to be defended. It all simply exists as it is, and that's enough. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And this is Della with Stillhouse Reflections, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now. Thanks for spending this time with me. May these reflections stay with you and keep opening new ways of seeing until we meet again at the Stillhouse.